Silent Hill franchise has had a rocky history of releases, from cult classics to other games that exist. Sorry to any Homecoming fans out there. But now we have Silent Hill F, a standalone title set in 1960s Japan. It's creepy, it's brutal, it's deeply off-putting, and it might be my favourite Silent Hill game to date. You play as Hinako Shimizu, a teenage girl growing up in the isolated mountain village of Ebisugaoka, a once prosperous town that's fallen on hard times and now left occupied by old families trying to hold on to tradition. Hinako, however, isn't one of those people. She's a tomboy, has a rough relationship with her family, and feels burdened by the societal expectations of the time.
Hinako, has anyone ever told you that when you talk to Shu, you sound kinda manly?
Especially since it seems her elder sister Junko has recently wed and moved out of the family home, leaving Hinako feeling abandoned and at the mercy of her father's temper and her mother's fear.
Your father's just worried.
I'm gonna go see my friends.
Come home soon!
It makes for a tense opening that never really fades into a sense of true calm, even as you descend the mountain into town to meet up with Hinako's friends, Shu, Sakuko, and Rinko. And it definitely doesn't improve when you start to notice just how thick this fog is. Even in a town as rural as this one, surely there'd be more people on the street, right? Well, maybe it has something to do with the 10-foot fog monster. I wasn't expecting such big swings right out of the gate, being hurled straight into the action, but you do grow to understand this is something of a pattern for Silent Hill F. Big swings to throw you off guard, followed by eerie, uncomfortable, calm-ish, followed by more big swings. As you wander around narrow alleyways and open streets, you'll occasionally run into smaller, more manageable enemies that you can try to avoid, or, if you're feeling brave, try to take out. Combat is pretty straightforward melee. The classic lead pipe is sturdy and reliable. Weighty axes and mallets deliver devastating hits, but take longer to swing, while more agile weapons like the sickle and blades cut fast, but break quickly. You can make a standard or heavy attack that takes a little longer to charge, but ultimately does more damage. Attacking and dodging use up stamina, but if you time it correctly, a perfect dodge will restore your meter to its max capacity. Timing is also key when it comes to performing counterattacks, which, unlike dodging, was not something I ever managed to get right. Counters can only be performed when a brief signal is flashed that's very easy to miss if you're not waiting for it or you have other enemies on your tail. Focus mode can be a big help here, both to keep the counter signal on longer and for charging up focus attacks, delivering one devastating swing that can stagger an enemy, but at the cost of your sanity. How each of these meters work depends on the difficulty you're playing at, either story or hard, but to put it simply, you have 3 bars to worry about: health, stamina, sanity. If you run out of health, you die. If you run out of stamina, you can't sprint or fight. And if you run out of sanity, you can't access focus mode. If you do find yourself in a pinch, there are healing supplies you can find that restore all 3, as well as toolkits to repair your weapons. But these can also be offered up in prayer at save stations to create faith points. You can then spend these points to pull for boons called omamori, or save them for later to upgrade things like your max stamina, health, sanity, or to hold more omamori. It is worth mentioning I did play this with the action in story mode and the puzzles in hard mode, so I can't speak to the combat difficulty or drop rate of items anywhere else. But I did find fights got a bit messy, particularly in the later game where you're in tight spaces or being ganged up on by multiple enemies. I'm torn because I deeply appreciate that they've made Hinako feel like a teenage girl, thrown into violent situations she's not equipped for. She stumbles when running, gets winded, and you can feel the strength physically leave her when she makes big swings that don't connect. But sometimes you really just want her to move faster or react quicker, and it can feel like you're being punished for things outside of your control. Silent Hill F takes great pains to remind you, though, that the scariest thing it can do isn't throw monsters at you, it's leave you in their absence. There are long stretches between fights where you're just wandering around to your next objective, and if it wasn't for all the murder knife dolls, cursed scarecrows, and the infestation of spider lily flesh sacks, this would be a beautiful walking tour. Ebisugaoka itself is made up of narrow alleyways and side streets that open into backyard gardens and shrines. Going further out of town, though, sees you walking dirt roads, forest paths, and abandoned rice fields. And we haven't even touched on the dark shrine yet. This ancient-looking, otherworldly temple appears as an in-between story whenever Hinako is unconscious. In it, weapons don't break, but Hinako can still take damage, as she runs around under the eye of Foxmask, a mysterious entity that comes in the guise of a friend. I won't say too much more because those story beats in particular are riddled with spoilers, but suffice to say, it is a beautiful, haunting location that I truly do dread waking up in. There is no denying that developer Neobards absolutely ace the environmental design, and that also goes for the environmental storytelling. As is typical, notes are scattered throughout the world with snippets of the history of the town and the thoughts and feelings of Hinako's so-called friends. But there's just as much lore to be found in the design of the enemies, how they move, attack, and the way Hinako responds to them. Much like past protagonists, Hinako is a diligent note taker, and thank goodness for it. As you explore, she'll mark her map to show where you've been, notable features, and places that are blocked off or need to be looked at further. There's also a section of your journal dedicated to each of the primary characters, enemies you encounter, tutorials, and a list of documents you've found should you ever need to refer back to them, which you will. My favourite part though is the puzzle section, an invaluable tool that stores all the clues you found to each of the major puzzles that need to be solved to progress the story. Even on hard puzzle mode, I didn't find the majority particularly difficult, but there are some real head scratchers for sure. A section in the middle school, for instance, sees you looking for keys to the back gate, but what that actually looks like is hunting for a different set of lost keys to open the second floor, then unlocking a puzzle box, decoding a secret language to access a locker, realizing I was looking in the wrong locker, unlocking a different room, finding the key, and then desperately hoping I could make it back to the home base because I hadn't saved in a while. And the whole time I was on the edge of anticipation, just waiting for something to crash through a door or chase me down a hallway. Silent Hill F does a phenomenal job at setting tone, and that tone is anxiety. While I wouldn't say it's a scary game in the typical sense, you're not constantly fearing for your life or getting jump scared every couple of steps, there's a feeling of isolation and the expectation of danger that permeates every second you spend here. And that is not alleviated by the addition of more people. Everyone you come across is odd in their own way, and while I initially started out craving the company of Hinako's friends just for the comfort of not being totally alone, I slowly grew to fear having to interact with literally anyone. If you've read writer Ryukishi 07's visual novel, Higurashi When They Cry, you'll be familiar with the kind of tension I'm talking about. You always feel like you're a step or two behind the ball, and Hinako's determination not to ask clarifying questions or call anyone out for straightforward answers doesn't help. But at the same time, I do so love not knowing what's going on. It makes the gut punch realization so much more impactful when those pieces finally do fit into place. Silent Hill F might not be able to please all Silent Hill fans, but as a standalone title, I think it does a masterful job at capturing the best elements of a psychological horror game. It's dark without feeling too gratuitous or exploitative. You feel capable while never feeling so powerful that you can throw all caution to the wind, and you truly never feel like you can trust anything or anyone. And with multiple endings to play out, there is always another reason to go back and see what you could have done differently or what you might have missed. All in all, it's a horrifically haunting good time. Play.